The next introduction is someone I must say I'm completely and very familiar with. Steve Alm and I met when he was a young deputy prosecutor. I think I was even old even in those days. Probably 35 years ago or something like that. He was a child prodigy, in case you're wondering, a child prodigy. Anyway, the Honorable Steve Alm is our prosecuting attorney, and his legal career spans many, many years, but needless to say, he was the former U.S. Attorney for the District of Hawaii. He was a circuit court judge, and now he's the prosecuting attorney. I'm not sure what else there is for him to do, especially in the legal field. But I've worked with Steve for all this time, and there is no stronger advocate for victims than Steve Alm. Steve, come on up.
Thank you, Dennis. And it's great to be here as the Honolulu prosecutor, because when the U.S. Attorney, the Attorney General's office, and the prosecutors are all working together, it's only going to benefit the system. We're not silos. We should be working together so we can get the best bang for the buck for every case. And part of our job is prosecuting defendants and sending them to prison. And there's no question about that. And I'm really pleased we're going to have a press conference later today, because last week a pimp was convicted of sex assault and sex trafficking, and he'll be sentenced in a couple of months, but we're going to be talking about that today. And I'll be talking about how proud I am of the victims, because the defendant was trying to play the system. I think he had 6 lawyers over the years. He has been in custody since 2013 because he kept firing his lawyers. And I think he was hoping the victims would give up at some point and say, I want to leave that part of my life behind me and move on with my life. And they've done that, but at the same time, they came, they testified, they stood up, and that's why he was convicted. So I'm really, happy to be able to do that and honor them. At the same time, we're trying to work with all of the partners as much as possible. The Domestic Violence Action Center has had a person volunteering in our office for 4 hours a week to work with the victims, because we're trying to do a more victim-centered approach to domestic violence cases. But that means if we listen to the victim and not proceed with the case, our victim witness kokua services has to step back, because we're not part of the case if we move to dismiss it. Well, the Domestic Violence Action Center was there before. We'll continue on with that. We just got a grant, thank you, through the Attorney General's office to have a full-time person embedded in the office doing that. So that's really good news, because what we're doing is all about the victims at the end of the day. That's what we're all here for, and that's what keeps us going with this. So I do want to read the proclamation from the mayor. Whereas navigating the criminal justice system can be a frightening and confusing experience for victims and survivors of crime. But thousands of victims and survivors have turned their own experiences into a force for positive change to ensure that others can receive justice, meaningful assistance, and compassionate treatment before the law. And whereas since the passage of the Victims of Crime Act of 1984, and through the dedicated efforts of advocates, lawmakers, and victim service providers, there is a growing array of services and resources for victims and their loved ones. And whereas crime victims deserve the right to be heard and treated with fairness, dignity, and respect, and have their needs met with compassion and understanding. And whereas coordinated, sustained outreach can restore their trust in the criminal justice system and social service systems. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to renew our commitment to providing accessible, appropriate, and trauma-informed services to all victims of crime. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week 2022 in Honolulu is supported and promoted by a coalition of public and private organizations, including the Honolulu Department of the Prosecuting Attorney, Hawaii Department of the Attorney General, United States Attorney, District of Hawaii, Crime Victims Compensation Commission, Hawaii Department of Public Safety, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence, Hawaii Pacific Health Sex Abuse Treatment Center, and the Domestic Violence Action Center. And whereas a special tribute to crime victims at Honolulu Hale on April 25, 2022 will recognize the tremendous contributions and sacrifices made by crime victims and survivors in the pursuit of justice and community safety. Therefore, I, Rick Blangiardi, Mayor of the City and County of Honolulu, do hereby proclaim April 24th through April 30th, 2022 to be National Crime Victims' Rights Week 2022, to reaffirm our community's commitment to creating a victim service and criminal justice response that assists all victims of crime, and to extend sincere appreciation for those community members, victim service providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving our response to all crime victims so they may find relevant assistance, support, justice, and peace. On this 25th day of April, 2022, Honolulu, Hawaii, Rick Blangiardi, Mayor of Honolulu. Thank you.
I think Clover thinks every time we clap that we're clapping for her. Steve, thank you so much. I really appreciate some of the elements of what you said, and in particular mentioning our survivors who themselves have contributed so much, and some of them will be speaking later today.